Yay! Well, here we are with Breath to Breath, and I'm interviewing Greenville's own Liz Delaney of Greenville Yoga. Liz, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Perrin. I'm glad to be here.
Oh my God, absolutely. So before I go into the intro that you so lovingly provided me, I'm just going to brag on Liz because she is, yes, I'm doing it. She is the owner of Greenville Yoga, which I had to ask. I knew it'd been around for a while, but since August 2005. And honestly, you are providing such a gift to Greenville, which is where we're both from, Greenville, South Carolina. And your studio, your little home has provided so many interesting and eye-opening offerings that's really how I've gotten to know you, is because I've just gotten curious and you keep offering these things. I'm like, yeah, I want to learn that. Yes, I want to attend that. Yes, those are the things that are providing the information that I'm having a hard time finding or I'm interested in. So I just have to say thank you so much for all that you provide to Greenville, and also female owned, which makes my heart sing. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
All right. Well, let's get into the logistics. Jose, okay. Round two. 10
You're
years
good.
before discovering yoga, Liz suffered with asthma and anxiety. Shortly after discovering breath-centered yoga, Liz was able to throw away her inhaler for good. And these classes, she was taught the tools she still uses today to keep herself at peace and the anxiety at bay. Ooh, nice rhyme there. Liz uses the knowledge to teach breath-inspired movement, which leaves students feeling emotionally centered and more comfortable in their physical bodies. After moving to Los Angeles, she was introduced to a class with Max Strom in final relaxation. Her anxiety went away and her mind got quiet. Liz has been a dedicated student and friend of Max ever since. Liz completed her first teacher training with Max Strom and physical therapist Sherry I hope I pronounced this right, Brourman.
Brourman, yeah. You're
Brourman.
good. You're
I'll
good.
get there. In 2000, when then she has gone to study with Max for over 1,000 hours since that first teacher training 20 years ago. 10 years ago, Liz met Sarah Powers, the leading teacher of Yin Yoga worldwide. These teachings changed her life once again, giving her balance that she needed to relieve her perfectionist tendencies and find her way back to happiness in the present moment. She's completed over 300 hours of teacher trainings and retreat time studying a combination of yin yang yoga, meditation, and transpersonal psychology with Sarah and her husband, Ty. Liz has most recently begun studies with Martha Beck and will be taking her Wayfinder training over the next year. Her hope is to help people tap into what they are passionate about and find a rich life full of heart and meaning. Liz.
That sounds
Man.
really long and over aggrandized.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I love that I ask people to send me information and they do. And then I get to learn more about them because I never would have thought a perfectionist. I never would have thought anxiety. I never would have thought asthma. And as I was like thinking about what I'm going to ask you, I was going to say, your healing's showing. Like, I mean, like, man, what a far journey. So before I even get into like what you're working on now and how you've really changed those things, I was just going to ask, what is your breath of origin story? So you touched a little bit on this, and this is the question I like to start off every interview with because it really just gives you a platform to share. How did you get here? What else did we miss? What's been meaningful and impactful in your life?
That's a big question.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, where to begin. I grew up between Kentucky and Texas, and I just always had this sense that there was kind of something more out there. And I started, my mom had these yoga records that we were just talking about today because we were all teasing about who started yoga first. And I was in middle school. My mom had this yoga record called Claire Stearns Yoga, and it was hot pink, and the woman was in a black leotard, and it would beep, and you would turn the page. I don't know if you're old enough to have had records, Perrin, but
I know what you're talking about.
okay.
I had cassette tapes, but
Okay, yeah, so it would beep and you would turn the page in the center of the album and it had the pictures of her doing the poses. And so we would do that and like crack up, my girlfriends and I, or we'd listen to meditations and just giggle through them. But I think it opened some kind of something where I just felt like there's something else. And I was in college in Kentucky, and the probably the biggest impactful moment of my life that got me out to Los Angeles, I was my grandfather died of HIV, AIDS related pneumonia in the 90s. And so I volunteered for AIDS Volunteers of Lexington, and I was a crisis call person. So I was trained to take calls to get people where they needed to go for testing or for medical information. And this was back when it was super scary for everybody. And I had a young girl my age call me, and she had just been diagnosed. She was HIV positive. And it was literally just one of those, I don't remember anything else about the phone call, just a lightning bolt moment of, oh, we could go tomorrow. Like, what am I still doing in my same hometown? I was 19. I graduated from college early, so I was in my junior year of college, and I was like, okay, I think I need to make some changes. And my best friend lived in LA, and that was April, and I moved in June of 1995 out to Los Angeles.
wow.
So, and then it was there, yoga was already starting the boom. And so I would take class, but I didn't really find anybody I loved quite yet. Don't mind my cat.
I love your cat.
And then Brian Delaney, who actually is a yoga teacher here in town, and my ex-husband, he was practicing Tai Chi out in the courtyard of our apartment. And so we would stop and talk because I'd be walking my dog. And he said, hey, you should come take this guy Max's class with me. And I was like, well, okay, I'll do that. And so he took me to Max's class, and the rest is kind of history. Like once I met Max, it was like, okay, when else do you teach? And I started practicing 5 days a week with Max. And he is very breath centered in his work, very much like breath first, pose second. And so, yeah, that's how it really started and became like it was just part of me after that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I mean, I would say 100%. And that even brings up another connection that we have, because I was literally reading A Life Worth Breathing by Max Strom, and like on the first, or one of like the first few pages, dedication is like, special thanks to Liz Delaney for like copy editing. I was like, hey, I know her. Let me double check. And I texted like, is this you? Is this you? And so you just have some of those special treasures that keep unfolding and giving themselves, in the sense that I just love learning about your life. I mean, I can't believe you moved to LA when you're 19. Well, I say I can't believe. There's a lot of things that I didn't think I believed, but I believe now. But maybe
Yeah.
not so accurate would be how inspiring. Like how inspiring that, like,
well, youth, you
made.
don't know any better. You just
Well,
go,
right.
okay,
And
sure.
I was gonna say, and thank goodness we have enough insight to know that something needs to change, but not like enough world knowledge or like experience living, being beaten down when you're younger to be scared to do it. And honestly, that's what I keep trying to come back to as an
Yes.
adult. It's like, how do I have that sense of awe so that I can teach and reach and go for the things that are lighting me up without that negative voice, whether it be in an internal dialogue or society or what I think I should be doing, telling me otherwise, that basically is this and this. And actually, that goes into one of my questions. Great transition, Perrin.
Okay.
Okay, I was going to say, how do you balance daily life with this journey towards integrity and calm? And the reason I'm using the word integrity, because as we discussed before I started recording, Martha Beck, who you are taking some training from, one of her books that I actually listened to and loved is The Way to Integrity. And it just got me thinking about that term in general, and your calm, and how do you like balance this esoteric world with life, everyday life, like mortgages and taxes and children and scheduling and logistics, with integrity and calm
Yeah.
breath. And mostly I'm asking because I want to do better. I mean, I think to a degree, like you kind of just figure it out, and I can always tell when I'm out of balance, but I would love to know, like, what does your imbalance look like, and
Okay.
how does that work?
I mean, I think there are different stages. And right, this is where I think we have a little bit of a disservice in the Western world. Like in India, the women there, and I'm not saying it's perfect or right. So,
Yeah.
but there is a student stage where you are a student, right? You live with your family, you have certain expectations. You're a student. If you're going to school based on what you were told you're going to do, then you're a householder. So you have your children. And then then you're allowed to go on your spiritual seeking after your children are gone, right? So in our culture, we think we have to have it all perfect and done right away, right? We're supposed to be the best mom, the best wife, the best house caregiver, and be on our spiritual quest and pay all the bills and look amazing while
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
So I think when I started realizing like it's just our culture that has this idea that we're supposed to be perfect at all of it, that was one thing that kind of let me off the hook. And then knowing that, right, we have this path and sometimes we veer off the path. Like you're talking about being brave and moving to Los Angeles, and I lost that part of myself for a while. That part that was fearless and just willing to take chances no matter what anybody thought. Even if people thought it was a dumb idea, like I just knew I was called to do it. But then at some point society took over, and I kind of feel like it was when we moved from Los Angeles back this direction, fascinatingly.
Yeah.
um, and also I had children, and so then things shifted. I have two kids that are teenagers now, one 18, one 14.
Yeah.
um, Divorce, all those kind of catalytic events that bring you back. You either have a choice to go forward or go back, or I guess go into chaos or go back to your center, I guess is the way I'm
Yeah.
thinking of it. And those events brought me back to my center. It's like because there was no anchor of family anymore. There was no anchor of this is the way life is supposed to be. I'm supposed to be married with my two kids, and that rug was completely pulled out. So it's like, and I lost myself for a little while. I never lost my contact with spirit or connection, but I lost a little bit of confidence and certainty or surety that I
Mm.
had to find again. And I had to kind of pull the rug out again, like 2 years past my divorce,
Yeah.
uh, to find my way back. Because it literally, when you're at nothing and you're like, I spent like a year on my couch, like just feeling completely defeated and sad. And I felt the most connected to spirit actually at that time because I had nothing else to lean on or rely on. And so, I mean, I had friends, but it was still like a very internal time
Yeah.
because I just kind of screwed my life up a little bit after my divorce.
Well, I was gonna say, God, thank you so much for sharing all that, because what I know to be true in my bones is me too. I part of the reason I'm actually doing what I feel like I've been called to do, which is honestly pave this way of finding other people, making connections, bringing more clarity, bringing breath-centered awareness, and honestly just trying out new things, is because I found myself 38, not married, dog mom. Like, what? I don't remember this part of the story being told to me as a little girl. And when you don't see these things, you don't know that they exist until you do. And I think sometimes when the disconnect is actually happening is when we're going towards these directions of a path that we weren't modeled or didn't see or wasn't talked about. And we realize, oh, this is my life. And let's talk about the time on the couch. I mean, I can remember once I finally gave up Adderall, oh my God, me, the couch, and a jar of Nutella, spoon right in there. Lots of time was spent. Lots of times was spent with the Nutella and the couch. And I almost feel like that's your ground zero. Like
Yes.
couch
Yeah.
is ground couch is
Yeah.
ground
Safety.
zero.
Like this is as much safety. Like this is where I'm safe is on this rectangle with my dogs and my kids and I still
Oh,
had to, I mean, here's the thing, when you have kids, right? I still had to mother, I still had to nurture. So I
oh,
had to have like some, and that's kind of, and
yeah,
maybe that's my grounding force that keeps me fairly level. It's like I know I have to be there for them. So I'd still have to get up. I'd still have to, I never pretended, but I still would, make the lunches, walk them to school, get them where they needed to go, and try to do as little to rock their little worlds as
yeah,
possible, right? So that is one way that I had to stay fairly anchored and calm, right? Because if you're like, Glennon Doyle has a thing about the flight attendant, like when you're on the plane and it's like,
Uh-huh.
if the flight attendant's freaking out, then you have permission to freak out.
Yes.
So I remember reading that and thinking, okay, I'm the flight attendant. I cannot freak out. I have to maintain the calm and the peace because my
Yeah.
kids are looking at me and watching me like, is she about to freak out? Is she okay? Is she fine? And like, and my son is a super caregiver. And would always be like, are you okay? Are you, he's very sensey feely, and he's 18, so he'd kill me if he knows I said this, but he's always the one that, asks, are you okay? And
Yeah.
anytime something's going on, his first question. So I knew I didn't want him to have to parent me or to take care of my emotional needs. So that was like, bar none, even if I'm falling apart, my children will never have to take care of me emotionally, was kind of my rule. So
Mm,
that is one way I kept an anchor parent. I mean, the other
yeah.
is teaching yoga.
Yeah.
My community, boy, they saved me more times than I can. When when sometimes you don't love yourself enough, right? So post divorce, I kept thinking like I've lost family, and then I got into a relationship with a kind of childhood sweetheart, right? And it wasn't good, but I was trying to recreate family, and then that was not good. So I had to push that away again. So when you don't really love yourself enough because you've gone through this, sometimes other people are the mirror for you. And the yoga students at Greenville Yoga were my mirror because they just loved me through it all. Like, and these were all women who had been through divorce or been widowed, had known deep loss, and they would come in and just rub my back and say, "Oh, honey, you're gonna be fine. You're young. That I got remarried at 47. Oh, honey, I met the love of my life at 70. Or I've been alone and it's amazing. And I just bought a house in Belize, and I'm packing my stuff, and I'm moving to Belize. So I got to see all these different ways to do things, and I got this unconditional love from these people that really, I think, saved me and brought me back to life. And then having that, yeah, there's a group of women, they called themselves the Namaste bitches. And, they loved me so
Excuse
much.
me, how do I become a member? Are they
I have to get you the
accepting
t-shirt.
applications? I
We
want-
have to get them back. They're still on Zoom from COVID, but they loved me so much and checked in on me that they just kind of, I mean, I probably don't even know like how much their laughter and love really made me believe in myself again, to keep kind of to show up for myself more, even more.
Oh, Liz, sorry, I'm like just violently writing as many notes. Violently,
Good.
vigorously. I don't know. It's a word.
Vigorously. There you go. There you
Vigorously. Sorry, my
go.
working brain words are hard for some reason, which is
Mm.
great when you're doing an interview. I have a lot of thoughts and I'd love to unpack some of that with you because what you just said on so many levels is just like pinging. Yes, 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 yes. So what I would say the first thing is when you talked about understanding that your kids do not need to be the parent of you. Like, oh my God, what a gift. What a gift that you gave them. And what I would say is not only was it a gift, but you also understood like, this is why. This is my why. I am going to make
Mhm.
sure I'm okay. And I think sometimes it takes that pull of something greater than yourself to
Oh yeah.
truly bring it into perspective. So what I would say is you very beautifully were co-regulating. That's essentially what Glennon Doyle's talking about is the
Hmm.
co-regulation. And that's where I love to bring in like the nerdy nervous system and like my speech therapist side is basically that's what the breath does. The breath
Hmm.
either allows you when chaos comes towards you. If you have a regulated breath, if you have a regulated nervous system, it stops there. And then in
Hmm.
fact, you even can change that chaos coming towards you by the mirror that you're reflecting back of yourself from that place of calm. But I mean, if you're unaware, if you are in this anxious state, then when chaos comes, it's like gasoline on the fire. So
Right.
what a phenomenal gift that you were able to not only model a regulated nervous system, a regulated resiliency to your children, but in fact, that outside why from yourself gave you the fire to be able to give it to you and then to them. So that's thought one. And then two, actually I've got three thoughts. Thought two is I love that all the work you did from age 19 to LA, to meeting Max, to building this yoga journey, this yoga practice, and then bringing it back, what you were doing, or whether it was divine intervention or source or predestination, whatever you want to call it, you were setting yourself up. You were creating the buffer, the reserves that was needed for when you fell, when you stumbled, because
Yeah.
it's going to happen. I mean,
Well,
and
that's what I was going
yeah,
to say. This has
yeah,
been, I mean, I started practicing yoga daily with Max when I was 24, 25, and I got divorced at 40.
yeah,
So, and then the work with Sarah Powers that came in the middle, I mean, I
yeah,
can't discount that, right? So, like with Max, it was all about transformation and change, and we have to change and be better and do better. And then with Sarah Powers, it was like, accept every piece of who you are, be still, and you can't change until you accept the bad, the good, the ugly. So that's where the transpersonal psychology came in, right? It was the first time I had somebody working with my thoughts of like, we're in these yin poses, and she would say, you can't break through a construct. So if you say I am anxious, you cannot change that, right? But if you say I'm feeling anxious, you can change a feeling. And so she would put us in these yin poses and make us go through our constructs of like those things we say we are, right? I am traumatized. I am anxious. You cannot work with those. You cannot unpack them. You cannot undo them. So before I got divorced, I had 7 years of work in yin yoga, Buddhist meditation, and inner psychology, right? And the meditation piece was the one that was like, okay, clear the path. Here's where I am. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's painful.
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
I can respond versus react, because life is always going to happen. And right, I'm going to tell you a funny story. And I tell my
yeah,
students this. I
yeah,
was at my therapist's office. I had a great healer that I worked with since I moved to Greenville. And I was like, I'm a good person. I do everything right. Like I'm super bound to ethics because of my training with Max and just my own personal code of ethics. And I was like, I do everything right. I'm nice to people, and these shitty things just keep happening. And she started laughing at me. She's this beautiful Iranian woman, and she says, "Oh, Liz, how have we gotten this far? And I've never told you this. Life happens." And I was like, "But no, shitty things happen all the time. Doesn't matter how good you are. That's part of life. It comes like this." And
mm-hmm.
then, so I remembered that. But then the thing that got me the most, and has gotten me the most through every other moment since then, is one of my yoga students, Dorothy. She had been divorced, remarried, and she said, listen, it's just like the waves. She's like, the wave is going to come, and some days you're going to ride that wave and you're going to feel really good. But don't worry, the next day it's going to pull you under and you think you're going to drown. But if you just float, you'll be all right and you'll ride to the top again. She's like, just ride the waves. And it was like, and this is not somebody who practices yoga as a philosophy. This was just one of my senior students who was just sharing her words of wisdom. And I've shared that so many times since, because it is what got me through. Because I'd be like, okay, I'm down. It won't always be like this. Okay, I'm up. It won't always be like this. So appreciate it. And so, I mean, I'm very lucky that I had decades of anchors to kind of, and tethers to keep me okay when I was going through massive life transition. Like, I don't know how people do it who don't have all that, all the tools, because I literally was depressed for a really long time.
No, I love that. And if we're sharing stories about things our therapists have told us, it's like, oh, that should be a new game. Things my therapists have told.
Right, because
Um,
they're gems. They're
oh,
gems.
they are. Well, I was gonna say, because I was telling mine one time, I was like, I feel like I'm up and then I'm down, I'm up and I'm down. She's like, Karen, that's your heartbeat. Because if it's all the same, if it's that line
You're
through,
dead.
you're dead. I was like, oh,
Right,
yeah,
we're not meant to be automatons. I feel like sometimes in the
yeah,
yoga world, we're either told we're supposed to be
yeah.
up, 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 happy all the time, everything's good and unicorn and rainbows and sunshine,
Mm,
or we're supposed to be these automatons that don't respond to anything. And that's where Vipassana meditation, that's what changed for me, because the whole thing is a stimulation comes in,
yeah.
you respond, you take it in, and you say, this too I can include.
Mm.
Versus like Zen meditation, which is a not now. I'm not going to pay. It pushes it all down, 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 down.
But
Right. So you got
say,
the yoga world saying
yeah,
everything's happy, and
yeah.
then so there's the Vipassana allows you to ride that ebb and flow, right?
Wait, how do you spell that? Because I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. You said
Um,
apostle?
Vipassana, Vipasana. It's the Pali word for mindfulness. It's mindfulness meditation.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Well, I
And Pali was the language of the Buddha, so that's where that comes from.
oh, I love this. I love this. Well, and just hearing you talk about these things, I mean, things that I've learned and like come to know to be true is like the only thing we're guaranteed is challenge and change. So
Mhm.
you can stop being surprised when things are challenging and when things are change, because what you get to do, and I love what you just said, is respond versus react. That's what the
Mhm.
breath does. I mean, literally the space between our breaths, the pause that we give ourselves, that not only is like the space in the breath, it is literally creating space for our future self to ride, space for us to have healthy boundaries, space
Mhm.
us to think, to slow down, to receive versus just jutting out.
Yeah.
And what I like also, and what I was starting to talk about is like the divine layers of like all the work you had done when you found yourself in this low point of being divorced, trying to like care for these kids. And then you found that your students were your mirrors. And I actually wrote, find your mirror people. I like the
Mhm.
idea of like finding the people that mirror what you need to see. And what I would say is the universe just knew that things were going to change, things were going to be challenging. And because you were working so hard towards creating this and cultivating this beautiful community, when you needed it, you had given so much to them that, of course, they're going to give to you. And you found your mirror people. You found the
Mhm.
namaste bitches, or really, the namaste bitches found you because you had been giving to them when you could give. And then when it was time for yourself to receive, they were able to give. And it's so
Mhm.
reciprocal. It's that to me is the ultimate just beautiful relationship. It's not that it's one-sided, and it's not that it's always high or it's always low, but that it moves and it transitions and it's fluid, and that there's give and take. That's the yin, the yang, the light, the dark, the moon, the sun. I
Mhm.
mean, all of those things. And it's not that you can never be one or you can never be the other. It's the both and. It's the both
Yes.
and. It's not the either or, which also we had chatted earlier about, like I had posted about both and then I think y'all had done like a yoga nidra on both and then I had
Mhm.
posted something about grief and you had posted something about grief. And I was like, oh, this is like the universes are aligning.
We're in
And
sync. We're in
we're so
sync.
in sync. And honestly, the reason I do it is because I didn't have any examples of that. So when I found myself struggling, I was really having a hard time looking at someone else that had struggled and they turned out okay.
Mhm.
And there's so much value of just being able to have a visual, a model, someone that's been a few steps ahead of you and they turned out okay, because
Mhm.
that's how you start to know that I can be okay. And then
Yeah.
once you think it, you can become it. And once you become it, you can nourish it. And once you nourish it, you are it. It just,
Mhm.
it's this whole evolution. And uh yeah, no, just mm, all of it. All of it. Well, ready for another question?
Sure. Sure. I hope I answered
No,
your last
no,
one.
no, you absolutely did. And this is just
Okay.
a dialogue, it's a discussion. It breath to breath really just stemmed from me wanting to learn from people that were on a journey. And honestly, I'm trying to find my mirror people. I mean, I think 100% when you start changing the way you view the world, you start changing
Mhm.
your relationships. And then the things that you surround yourself, whether it's the sound that you hear, the food that you eat, the information that you're being exposed to or
Oh yeah.
digesting, not only like the sleep and your breath, but I mean, it's everything. And whatever is around you is absolutely going to play a part of like who you're evolving and becoming. And I just love these conversations. I love connecting
Mhm.
with people, and I love seeing, especially females and males, but especially female as a female, doing big, bold, exciting, scary, vulnerable, courageous things. And I think even just talking about this, I mean, these are the conversations that I would have
Yeah.
loved had or been able to see or hear when I was literally on the couch eating Nutella out of the jar,
Yeah.
thinking, "What the F am I gonna do?" What am I
Yeah, I mean, just in case anybody's listening to this and is having those moments, Glennon Doyle was the first. She was pre-divorce, but she was the first person that I found. She had this story. It's a really weird thing, and as an aside, I had a dream about canaries,
doing?
and I had this really weird dream about these canaries in a cage, and I heard these words in my head. It was like it was some God, I have it written down somewhere. It was something like they've changed from being down there, but they're going to be okay, or something like that. And then that day, Nancy Neal came into my yoga class, and she's a local dream worker here in town. And I said, "Oh, Nancy, I was just thinking about you because I had this crazy ass dream, and I woke up like hearing these words in my head." And she's like, "Call me." And I'm like, "No, you're busy. Shit, call me." And she left, and then she came back and put her phone number on the table and said, "Call me." And we ended up talking about it. And then the very next day, Glennon Doyle posted this story about canaries. And about canaries were the ones who warned when things weren't okay. They would be taken down in coal mine to sing,
Yeah.
to warn when the air quality was not okay. And so they
Yeah.
were the ones saying, like, this is not okay. And so that's how I discovered Glennon Doyle. And there was this really beautiful video that they did with it. And I would just sit there and cry and cry and cry. So Glennon Doyle is a big piece of like a female showing her vulnerability, who also didn't know the way and doesn't say she knows the way. So I really respected that. And again, this was 7 years ago, I guess. And then Broken Open is another fabulous, fabulous book that really spoke to me. And a woman wrote it, and it was basically about how when you are broken open, that's where the magic comes through.
Mm.
And she just told story after story of being broken and how, or what she thought was broken, but then something new emerged from that place and how it really wasn't broken at all. So it was like broken open in the very best ways or something. But that's a great resource book if somebody's struggling to like,
Mm.
again, have that mirror of like, oh yeah, like, and again, every spiritual tradition teaches us life happens,
Yeah.
but the question we can ask is, what can I learn from this? Like,
Oh,
I think what I did my first 40 years was why me? Like, I played the victim really, really, really well. And then what shifted for me was when I stopped asking that question and started saying, okay, what can I learn from this? What is it I need to know? And then it started changing, right? The situations, instead of being the same one over and over, they started shifting just a little bit.
oh no, what I was gonna say is like you shifted from victim to
Mm-hmm.
student
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
like a
And it's a
student.
much more empowering role.
Oh, 100%. Because the victim, that's the I am. The student,
Mm-hmm.
I feel, I observe, I see, I notice. Yeah. Oh, that's way cool. And then I was gonna ask, like, I feel like really you've really found these super interesting, resourceful people all throughout your journey from Max to Sarah. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about Martha Beck because, like I had mentioned, The Way to Integrity, the book that she's written. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
reading your bio, I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that name. So how did you come to find her? Like what is it that led you with the universe being the stars aligned that you were
Right.
able to connect to her trajectory?
Okay. I think last November, I took a week off work, and I was like, there's something missing. Something's not right. Like, I'm just not feeling fulfilled with what I'm doing. Like, I'm not enjoying it as much. Like, there's something coming next. There's something happening. And I couldn't figure it out. I was like, am I supposed to run for office? Am I supposed to like what is this that I'm supposed to? And I really had no idea. And again, listening to Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. And it's not like I'm a groupie or anything, but I do love the work
Oh,
that she shares. The
oh,
people she
I am.
shares
I
are phenomenal.
love, yeah.
But Martha Beck was on, and I was at a place where I was really stuck in my brain about something. And she had this exercise, and she said she was working at Harvard, and she was like, basically, she was so mad. And so she made this list, like, what I'm really, am I allowed to cuss on this podcast?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. She said, what I'm really
Hell
fucking
yeah.
sick of is, is this. And so she made this whole list of what she was really fucking sick of. And then the
Yeah.
next line was, what they should do is, and then you write everything they should do. And then you cross out they and put I at the top. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I know how the game's going to go, so I don't think it'll work for me. And so I went home and I got my journal out and I started writing it. And then I was like, oh, the they column, like, I know how this is going to go. Wrote it, crossed out they, put I, and went, oh. Uh-huh. Even though I knew how the game was played, it still softened me, let my hard edge come down and go, okay, no, it's actually, this is my responsibility. This is not anyone else's. And it kind of, I'm super glad it did because it helped me with a few other things. But then when I would have friends call me upset about something with their partner or this or that, I would tell them the same exercise. And then they
Yeah.
call me the next day and be like, oh my God, that was amazing. It completely helped me.
Yeah.
Um, so just her tools. And when she would say things like, when you hear, anytime I've met a teacher, like I studied Vedanta with some swamis, like when they would speak, it would just feel like truth, right? It's like you just feel it in your whole body. Like, oh, this is, yeah, we've all been kind of missing this piece. And when she speaks, I feel like that, like it hits on that truth with a capital T, like something you can't argue with. And so I just was like, oh, this woman cracks me up. She's a little wonky. She's a little weird, way more weird than I would ever put myself out there as. But every time she speaks, I'm like, yes, yes, like this is what the Buddhists teach, or this is what the Sufis teach, or yes, this is what they teach in Vedanta.
Yeah.
And but then her tools are very practical life tools. And so I happen to see on Instagram, she's like, Wayfinder life coach training. And
Mhm.
I kind of tease like everybody's a coach. And I was like, I think there's a way I can use this in the yoga world. And I think like I want to do something deeper with my students, with our students that are ready to go deeper. And so I feel like I can do something with this. And I applied for a scholarship and was turned down. And
Mhm.
then I was like, you know what? Because as soon as I heard about her training, I was walking on the beach in July, I guess it was, maybe August. As soon as I heard about her training, it was like all these little boxes just clicked into place. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do this training, and here's what's going to happen, and here's what you're going to do. And I also did some discovery calls with her, and she had us do another exercise, and it just became so clear in my field of vision. Like, I have to do this. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to put it on my credit card. I'm just going to do it. And the next week, our teacher training doubled in size and sold out at 24 people. And so now the yoga studio, because it is continuing education for me, is gloriously for the first time going to pay for my continuing education. So it was just one of those like, okay, this is supposed to happen
Oh my gosh.
without me going into debt, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I love it when you get the confirmations that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Keep going. Don't stop. So that gives me chills because it literally, I think when you kind of feel like you're on an island and like trying to find this uncrafted path
Yes.
and you like finally make that step, like, yes, I've decided I'm gonna do this, and you make that leap, that step, that jump forward, and you're still like, I don't know if this is right, but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Those little confirmations that you start to see around you, I mean, they're they're so powerful. And that's
Don't
great.
mind my cat.
Oh, I was gonna say, well,
She's
my dog's in my lap. I mean,
I'm like anyone who knows our Zoom yoga, this is the way she would lay on me in yoga. But yeah, I mean, it really, and I think that's the way my life has always been. When I
oh,
have taken the leaps, there's always been something that's shown up going, yes, this
yeah,
is what you're supposed to be doing. And yeah, it just was, I don't know, it's just one of those like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'll figure it out. Like I'll figure
right.
out the money, I'll figure out the timing. And it just happened that my son went off to college this year, and so I have more space, right? And my daughter started high school, so I actually have more space to build something new, and so it gave me something to focus on, so I didn't get too sad about my son not being here. um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. It just really felt like it was one of those kind of like moving to LA. Like one of the things she talks about is, your own following your North Star. And I'm like, I think I've always followed my North Star. I think I lost it for about 10 years in there. And I think I've slowly been gaining it back for the last 7. And yeah, so yeah, I do feel like, and I don't know if my mom taught us this woo-woo belief, but like
Yeah.
when you come up with what it is you want to do, the universe conspires to support you, right? If it's for the greater good for everyone, not for selfish gain, then I feel like the universe just conspires to make it happen.
Right.
And yeah, and my ultimate goal is to help other people feel okay being vulnerable and feel okay talking about grief, talking about divorce or therapy or screwing up their lives, because we all have, right? I mean, I know I totally did it myself, but it's very shameful to admit those things. And
I I was gonna say, I think it's shameful when you don't.
Well, that's what I mean. Yes, it's shameful
Yeah,
when you hold it. Yeah, shame is
yeah.
right. What is it? Brene Brown has some quote about like it's only shame when it's hidden in the
Oh,
dark,
oh
right?
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, well, then we also need to shout out to Brene Brown. So I was gonna say
Yeah,
Glennon
as
Doyle,
long as we
check.
got all our people.
Brene Brown, check. Martha Beck, check.
Yeah, Martha Beck was my lead
Yeah.
into realizing I was a perfectionist when I discovered her book. And my sister actually sent me the book, and it was her first, no, her second book. I can't remember what it was,
Mm.
but yeah, it was Gifts of Imperfection, I think it was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I am this. Oh, I'm not wholehearted. What? I
Yeah.
think I'm wholehearted. And then it was really a mirror that was kind of cool. So yes, Brene Brown. But yeah, it is not shameful when you let them out. But I
Right.
think so many of us feel like we can't tell those stories because what will people think of us? And I think in the last few years, I've started to let that voice go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's
Well, you know, it's easy when you live in LA and nobody knows you, but when you live in Greenville and everybody's in your business, then it's kind of hard.
I know. I know. Well, I love just the freedom of creating your own path. So I think in the beginning we very much talk about how it's scary when you don't see that path before you.
Mhm.
But I think there just comes a point where like if I don't take it, I'm gonna hate life. Like it doesn't matter what path I'm on. Like it's either this or nothing else. And
Yeah.
I've just I got to the point where it's like this is it. Like I can't go back to the way that I live. And I really kind of frame in the metaphor of like I just outgrew the shape. Like the shape I was in, it just no longer fit. And it didn't
Yeah.
sit well with me. And I could bring in all the plants, all the crystals, all the diffusers, all like the sound machines,
Hmm.
and it didn't matter. It didn't help. And it's I think there's beauty in just understanding that I'm just gonna trust and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna follow and I'm gonna receive and I'm gonna put out what I know to be true and breathe. Just breathe.
Yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate thing of the Wayfinder training that really hit me is she said, you know, the world needs people who can find their way
Mm,
in the water where there's nothing to really navigate on but the stars,
oh,
because
man.
we've been shifting for a long time in our culture. And I think pandemic really set a lot of us off in what we've been calling studio COVID clarity. Like the way things were done before is not going to be the way things are done in the future. And it's going to be people who find an innovative way. Like even yoga studios, I'm telling you, the way I ran the yoga studio before, we would not have survived if I said this is the way we do it and this is the only way we're doing it,
Oh,
right?
right,
We
right.
have to shift and change for the people's needs at the time, and it's seeing what's right in front of you, being present, being willing to go, oh, that looks like this. Let me make this, or this sounds like a good idea, or um, I mean, like being Zoom yoga. I happen to get an email from the company we use for our online registration
Yeah.
3 weeks before pandemic saying we have this new feature called broadcast yoga, virtual yoga. Try it out. And I had tried it out with my friends that lived around the world. And I was like, this is so fun. So the moment the pandemic hit, we were online on Zoom immediately because I was like, well, let me try. Like you said, like being open to receive and going, that sounds cool. Let me try that. And then when it's Martha Beck uses the word go toward what feels warm, right? What feels
Ooh.
warm, right? See all her little gems that I learned on these podcasts that like they stay. And that's what I was like, I have to learn from this woman because they're all gems. But go toward what feels warm. And then you find yourself, and she says, even 1 degree, right? A 1 degree turn
Yeah,
can change your trajectory for life. So
totally.
if a 1 degree turn is toward what feels warm, eventually you end up over here, right? And but I think her whole point was corporations are changing, infrastructure is changing. Um, we can't do things the way we've always done them, and we have to be around people who know how to find the way.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of, and again, if you're, we're going back to breath, if you're not breathing and in a regulated nervous system, you
Yeah.
cannot be open enough to receive the messages or the connections that show you what's next. Right?
Mm,
You have to be centered, you have to be calm, because if you're in chaos, you can't listen to those other pieces of
yeah.
intuition or inner knowing, or even the things the universe sticks right in front of you in a big bold sign.
Right. As I would say, I love the saying of like everything looks like flags when you wear rose-colored glasses, like it's just flags, whether they're red flags or not. But um,
That's funny.
I isn't it? Well, I decided literally the last interview I made up this question, and I really liked it as my
Mm.
closing. So I'm going to ask it to you. What does a deep breath mean to you?
Hmm. Life. The moment the breathing ceases, we cease, or this physical body cease. I
Yeah,
mean, it really is that precious.
yeah.
The I've been really, really lucky in my life. Max introduced me to the head of the Sufi order, and I got to study with him. And he said that one virtue is taking a breath in awareness, and the one sin is taking a breath in negligence.
Mm,
And that the moment we take this breath for granted, we take our lives for granted, right?
mm,
And I think about it like if you've been with a baby, you wait for that first breath like nothing you've ever waited for in your life.
yeah.
And if you've ever been privileged enough to hold someone's hand while they pass away, you sit with that last breath. Like I think I'm thinking about it, and you just sit and wait, and it's the most precious thing on the planet. And I don't know, like when I tell people watch their breath, I'm like, you think this is boring, but the moment it goes away, we
This
go,
life is over. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, this body, right? We don't know what happened, but
Right. Correct. Yes.
but yeah, but
This
it's
body is done.
yeah. So breath. I mean, when I think of a deep breath, I mean, yes, there's calm, there's peace, there's space,
Mhm.
um, but it's life.
Mm.
Mhm.
Oh, Liz, that was beautiful. That was
Oh, thank
beautiful. I
you.
I can't thank you enough for providing your insight and your time and allowing me to ask questions and give and receive. And I want to make sure that we cover everything that you're excited about and that you want to make sure is promoted. So did we miss anything that you have coming up or you want to make sure people are aware of?
Um, I mean, first, I just want to say, Perrin, I adore you and love you as well. Like from the minute I met you, I was like, oh my God, I love her. She's amazing. So I'm so honored to spend
Thank
this time
you.
with you. You were singing my
Thanks.
praises. But and I have a friend that was taking a breathing class, and she said it was the best gift to myself. I just cried for an hour, and clearly I needed it. And she's amazing. So know that you are shifting lives in such a profound way. And the more people teaching breathing and this virtue of breathing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Especially to our little people as well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as far as what's coming up, I mean, I don't. I'm not a good promoter, but we I mean, we are working on kind of depth work at the studio, just giving
Uh-huh.
people more community space and
Yeah.
time. So it's not just physical poses. So,
Mm.
I mean, our special events are layered with things like, a day of moving through grief to move to the light. Next month's theme is gratitude, and then Friday is letting go of the fruit. Or Friday, December,
Yeah.
that end
Yeah.
is letting go of the fruits of our actions, and a bonfire and walking meditation.
Ooh.
So
Oh, so it's basically a month letting go of attachments.
and it's been kind of like we've had this year-long theme, so we're kind of closing out our theme with each month to close out the year. So with fall and letting go. So
Love that.
yeah, so I mean, I don't know, just we're always doing something a little different besides just, I mean, we're always breathing and we're always moving, but we try to add some layers in for people who want community and depth and yeah, but yeah, I'm not I'm not very good at selling myself.
Well,
So
I will help you. So Liz is the owner of Greenville Yoga. It's in Greenville, South Carolina. It is a fabulous studio and spiritual home. They offer wonderful classes and offerings and continuing education, as well as a beautiful grassy space that is now fenced in with a garden and is a great home if you're looking for love. So
oh,
with
thank
that,
you.
thank you, Liz. I appreciate your time. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Perrin.
All right. Bye.